Hi, my name's Jake. I thought I knew who I was, a kid who liked to do normal things. Go to school, play video games, hang out with my friends. But the other night, my whole life changed when my friends and I were given the power to morph. Change shapes, become animals. So now Marco, Cassie, Tobias, my cousin Rachel and I can become dogs, cats, tigers, hawks, anything. Pretty cool, right? Not when you're the only thing between a bunch of mind-controlling alien yerks and the end of the world. You can't tell anybody because you never know who's a yerk and who's not. All I know is, now I'm an Animorph.
Altered Beast is an arcade/Sega Mega Drive game released in 1988, almost a decade before I was born, and 3 decades before anyone begging me to keep making everything wrong with Yu-Gi-Oh! In my comments section of every single upload was born. In 2005, it got a third-person action game reboot for the best console ever, the PlayStation 2, where you play as military bioweapon, shit, I swore I wrote this down somewhere. Luke Custer, descendant and inheritor of the Custer's Revenge legacy. He kinda looks like if Brian Fury, Krauser, and Virgil all put on a Putaru earring. You are tasked with entering a quarantine town after a former teammate turned rogue agent terrorist, Brad, released the genome mist into this unsuspecting town, turning everything into monsters. Project Altered Beast is something right up my alley, as I love monsters like werewolves and other cryptids, wishing we had more media based on them that was actually good and not embarrassing.
So what squatches would do in a place like this?
It's the closest thing we'll ever get to an Animorphs action game. The game is incredibly ambitious with what it's trying to adapt into gameplay, but it doesn't always work and has some of the most frustrating segments in any of the games I've covered so far. This game has me so conflicted because at times it's great, and at others it's awful and not worth suffering through. It's held back by its own shortcomings and could really use a sequel, but that's something we sadly will never see. The game opens with you being transported in a box via helicopter to the infected town before it's struck down by monsters. This is where you'll see our first transformation, and man, did they put all of their budget into these. They are so elaborate and super detailed. I'm not sure how much I could even show of this because it might trip the... They even have multiple angles and remixes, so every time you transform, you don't have to look at the exact same thing over and over again. But they probably should have had an option just to turn them off entirely. I'd imagine that these are being used to mask the loading in of the new forms, similar to how you had to pause and swap weapons in DMC1 because they couldn't load them in on the fly. Transformations in this game function on a meter similar to Devil Trigger. While transformed, you will consume the green meter below your health bar. Once it's empty, staying in your transformation begins to drain your health. Enemies drop these green puddles of uranium like a Tokai Mura nuclear power plant employee, and picking them up will restore part of your meter. The puddles all look the same, but the amount it refills varies from enemy to enemy. Luke also has the ability to stab his fist into enemies and drain this energy like he is Dio, but with the way that collision works, it often looks like you are grabbing their dick.
Grab his dick and twist it!
Oh my god, dude, this is an MMA fight, dude!
You twist that dick!
Twist his dick!
Initially, the only form you have is Werewolf. This will function as your all-arounder and is the most straightforward when it comes to combat. It's fast, has wide swipes, and does decent damage for the most part. Your jump does damage like Ifrit in DMC1, which is important to remember for some of the enemies I'm going to bring up later. Your special move is a John Tailbane Rush Tackle, which, with an upgrade, can have you go in multiple directions. To describe the overall feel of combat, I'd say it's a weird blend between a Musou game and a more conventional prototypical hack and slash game you would find on the PlayStation 2. It can seem pretty stiff as the game seems to buffer inputs, so if you are mashing, it will just keep doing your basic full combo and won't let you diverge with other buttons. Your jump also seems to have this buffering to it, as well as some hefty feeling input delay. You have to play this game pretty disciplined because mashing is just going to leave you animation locked in these same slash attacks forever, which often results in you getting hit by easily avoidable attacks from the enemies. The large crowds of enemies that are dispatched with relative ease that Musou games have Stockholm syndromed people, including me, into loving often become an annoyance rather than fun to power fantasy your way through, because most of, if not all of your moves can be interrupted easily with the flick of an enemy. A gentle breeze can interrupt your combos if enough enemies huddle around you, making doing combos feel impossible. Speaking of combos, there isn't much in the way of comboing compared to its contemporaries. Werewolf has the most combo potential of the main forms, where you can do a basic square combo ending with a launcher, jump into juggling them, and then before they hit the ground you could hit them with a super move rush tackle if your meter is filled. The rest of the base game forms are either too stiff and slow, or are projectile-centric ranged characters. You can buy more moves to branch your combos as each input of square paths into either a triangle input, an X input, or another square input for some of your other forms. In the case of Werewolf, his upgrades are pretty disappointing since every X input you can get for each of your new square additional inputs for your basic combo are just the same launcher every single time. So you end up having to pay progressively more and more upgrade points to do the same move just later in your combo. It's another one of the many instances where it would have just been better to make your launcher be hold back with the left stick plus square, and have it be that way and unlocked for every instance of the square rush combo, so all of these X inputs you can unlock could have been unique moves like they are for other forms. Your air combat for melee forms is present in the same sense that my high school guidance counselor was present when I nearly failed out because I was absent so much due to illness. You can point and go, yeah, that's an air attack, but anything more than that is unfortunately non-existent, and like when I needed help from my guidance counselor, you are better off going to something else who can do the job better. Your human form does have this sick as hell dive kick that can OTG enemies and keep your combo going, so there is potential present in this game, which is part of why I describe it as so frustrating at times. Just in the first combat arena, you can feel the promise that this combat system had. It's not terrible, mind you. I still had a lot of fun playing this game on stream, which if you want to go watch the VODs, you can find it on my Twitch channel in the description below, but it could be better, and the fact that we won't see something like this again really makes it sting all the more. The camera in this game is one of the worst feeling I have encountered, only being beaten out by games that I've played for this series but haven't covered yet, like 10,000 Bullets. Not only is it as slow as my release schedule for the Yakuza retrospective, with no settings to increase it, there is also momentum to its movement as it gains speed over time. Why anyone would think to add acceleration that needs to be ramped up to move your camera left and right is beyond my comprehension. Thankfully, the left bumper is more than enough as a replacement, as pressing it centers the camera behind you, and holding LB will keep it tracking behind you like you're an inbred cousin of Crash Bandicoot. After a few minutes, I had completely abandoned the right analog stick like a broken condom child, and became best friends with the left bumper. If you plan to play this game after this video, I think it is imperative that you do this. The second form you get is the Merman. His gameplay will make you look back on the Majora's Mask remake Zora swimming in a positive light when compared to his swimming speed. His movement also has this weird issue because to swim you have to hold the X button, but to go up and down you also need to tap the X button when standing still, so you can't swim at full speed and change your altitude at the same time, making your movement feel like you are playing a crane game rather than playing as a fish. Merman is the gimmick form of this game, as you can only turn into him when you're in deep enough bodies of water, otherwise the transformation is locked off. Less creature of the Black Lagoon and more of a fish with legs. This is your first taste of the projectile ranged characters of this game, and you will quickly see why they aren't very fun. You are completely beholden to the auto tracking of your projectiles. You live and die by if your projectiles actually hit your targets and go to who you're aiming for, or doing nothing at all and leaving you with no way to hit them. Very Dino Crisis 3-esque. Now you may be thinking after hearing this that you should avoid upgrading this form. No! Please, for the love of God, put points into this form and save yourself from the massive headache that I had to deal with because your damage is piss poor versus enemies in water when not upgraded. Combat arenas function like Devil May Cry, where these magical barriers erect once enemies spawn in, but in this game the ones glowing the same color as the door are the only ones that are mandatory to kill. Of course, they are way tankier and deal more damage than the basic versions of them, so please do not put yourself through the torture of trying to struggle through the swimming segments because you want to use all of your upgrade points on the forms you find more fun like I did. There is a noticeable amount of difference from the upgraded Merman versus the damage you get initially. I forgot to mention this in the original script of this video, but how Luke gets his new forms is really funny. Every time you beat a boss, Luke sticks his hand into their body, rips out their microchip, and then just scarfs it down like he's a TikTok kid trying to figure out what a Nintendo Switch cartridge tastes like. The next transformation you get is the Yeti, and while it's been a present factor since the start, it gets more egregious egregious from here on out, and that is the description of new moves versus what they actually do in gameplay. So many of them do not match what they are billed as. This is not a spin. It's possible that these descriptions are just tied to the wrong moves, because the Yeti does have a spinning attack, but it's a different upgrade later in their skill tree. Now that we have the Yeti, we can get more into the bosses of this game, and how they are pretty hit or miss. They follow the basic design philosophy most bosses are all about, where they test you on things that you just got and learned. The entire mall level section of this game has you using the Yeti to throw giant boulders of ice at both flying enemies and those who are hanging from the ceiling. So when the boss of this area is a griffin flying around a basketball court, you'd think that the game would want you to use the Yeti form, especially when you manage to actually hit the damn thing with the boulder and it does massive amounts of damage. But the griffin is so fast and your attacks and movement are so slow, it's almost impossible to hit this guy. That's not even taking all of the basic enemies into account that are in the room so you can drain them for meter. Flying enemies are already so annoying in this game, but the flying bosses really are on a whole new level of insufferable. If you don't want to be stuck on this boss like I was, you just need to accept the fact that the sonic jump attack for the werewolf is the easiest and most effective way of dealing damage, and the only form you should bother using, especially in phase 2 on the roof, where they have even more room to fly around and be obnoxious with. Once you beat the griffin, you get access to the bird form, which I think is the coolest part of this game. Normally in other games this would be a hyper-restricted ability similar to how Merman is here, but not only does it allow you to fly all over the overworld, transporting you from zone to zone much faster than it is on the ground, it also allows you to freeform fly through the ground levels themselves and completely skip over combat encounters or obstacles if you want. This form will unlock you the ability to get to some of the previously gated off segments and sections for collectibles, upgrades, and unique encounters. This game does have some Metroid backtracking elements to it, and I find it really fun because all of the forms get to shine in their own unique ways and open up the map more and more. The only thing that is annoying about this is when you transform into a specific one needed to unlock their corresponding areas, you'll have to stand around and wait for their meter to fill so you could do their super to blow up a gas tank or whatever else it may be. The next form you get is the Minotaur, and the fight to get it is another flying enemy, and it is just as, if not more, insufferable as the Griffin. Again, like what I said about the Merman, you should really upgrade the attacks for the Eagle form because you are going to be relying on it more than you would want to. Also, if you manage to kill any of the unique enemies in any of the hidden special encounters, please get the upgrade to allow you to move while doing the Eagle's Tornado Super. It makes an already really good move even better and felt like a necessary ability for the final boss. These unique encounters can suck my balls. They are so tanky while often being surrounded by other enemies and on a timer. The best strats I had was to either clear out the room with the Eagle form from a distance before the unique enemy spawned in and the timer started, or if they were alone, to use the Yeti form and just chain grab them and slam them into the ground over and over again because they couldn't get away, and I would just animation lock them with a second to spare. The final boss of this game has entered the contention for the worst final boss of the PS2 action games I have covered so far. It's a 6-phase gauntlet of misery with a boss that has too much HP, too much invincibility frames, too many shitty hitboxes, and too high of damage. If you fail at any of these phases, then it kicks you back to the save station outside of the boss room, which you have to then wait for the special move meter of your dragon form so you can blast the force field away to even start the boss. The second and third phase have the same issue the Griffin did, where it is clearly meant to be attacked with one form, the Yeti versus the fire form and the Minotaur versus the ice form, but you take so much damage from being hit by their attacks and stuck in awkward animations versus terrible hitboxes that it is just better to deal less damage with the same attribute as them, because the Yeti takes 0 damage versus their ice attacks and the Minotaur takes 0 damage versus their fire attacks, so you can just infinitely wail on them until they do any of their melee attacks or fly to the other side of the room. Then there is the flying phase, which is what got me stuck on this boss for multiple hours. You are at the mercy of the auto aim again versus the most obnoxious shit in this entire game. I had to use the iframes of the Eagle's Tornado form just to dodge a bunch of their attacks. Being able to move during this special with the upgrade to reposition yourself was so useful, and why I recommended getting it earlier. This phase was such a roadblock that it took me possibly longer than my entire playthrough of the rest of the game, which at one point I stopped recording and keeping track of it, so it wasn't just wasting hard drive space of me failing to fight this thing over and over again. Remember, you are on a timer for your forms with this green meter, and sometimes the boss just doesn't release any of the goop for you to absorb so you can get more time in your form, form without taking any damage to your health bar. Or if they drop it, depending on where they're standing in the room, it can just fall completely out of bounds and you have no ability to pick it up. The phase after this one is whatever. You just jump at it with the werewolf form like you did versus the griffin, and the final phase is said to be easy by a few of the guides I consulted after getting brick-walled by this boss, but it killed me a few times because you need to break its force field first with the dragon form, but to balance how ungodly powerful dragon is, you move like you are geriatric, and the boss sends these glowing snakes at you that will explode, so I got stuck in the rhythm of breaking the shield, but having to dodge the snakes so I wouldn't die, and couldn't actually deal any damage to the boss. Once you beat the boss and subsequently the game, there are some post-game goodies and mini-games. The game has a Bloody Palace equivalent with the Elevator of Doom, but its implementation is definitely worse than Bloody Palace. In this mode, you have to select one of your forms and enter the elevator with it. It is then the only form you have access to when fighting, so it more so highlights the game's somewhat restrictive combat due to its animations, rather than its interesting variety of transformations. There is a boss rush mode where you are timed, but seeing as most of the bosses are the worst part of this game, the only reason you would ever want to do this is for its reward, which the final post-game content worth mentioning is the 3 secret unlockable transformations: the Grizzly, Brad's Were-Tiger, and then the Alien, which is unlocked by beating the Elevator of Doom, collecting all of the data from every enemy in the game, and beating the boss rush. As fun, overpowered, and funny as any of these transformations you can unlock are, I don't think it's worth doing, and you are better off just unlocking them by importing a save after beating the game and just messing around with them for a little bit. Like I've tried to make it clear throughout the entire video, the game is chock full of interesting ideas and ambitious attempts of adapting unique monsters to gameplay, but for as much cool stuff present, it equally has something that makes you want to snap the disc in half. I still recommend playing this game because I overall look back on my time with it fondly, and wished that it was a game that came out in America, because if I played this as a child, I would have been absolutely obsessed with it. Instead, even Sega knew this game was kinda jank and ass and decided to only localize it in Europe, so the only real way to play it is through emulation or a modded PlayStation 2. It's really unfortunate that a game that plays like this didn't get a sequel, or at least something that played similar to it that could have built on its ideas but played better. If you've made it this far into the video, I just want to say thanks for watching as always. If you really liked the video, please leave a like and comment, and don't forget to subscribe and pass the video around. If you really like these videos and want to see more like it, then maybe consider becoming a patron on Patreon. It is the best way to support the channel. All patrons get access to videos a day early, along with a $7 tier that allows you to view rough cuts of upcoming videos. I'm now going to shout out all of my $5 and up patrons who really help support the channel: Mitchell, Bully, Densha, Lucy the Fox, Salt and Sweet Rum, Sir Newt Newt, Scary Dinosaur, Elliot Morton, Kohai Carmen, Lotto, Medi Not the Bad Guy, Nemphy, Quaner, Quartz, Samuel Egan, Sayan Heggy, Simply Aiden, Slemp Tingle, Swimming, Walkman, BBF in Bloxburg, NM, Revin, Cosmonaut Cola, Rovit, Ben Johnson, Buckets, Chichometrius, Cursed Void RTGC, Ekphraso, Filthy Finger 69, Fishkami, Hardleg Joe, Kevin Velasquez, Lazy Titan, Megan, Nicholas Pedinato, Jordan Bennett, Sean the Berserker Fighter, Starcasters, The Worstest Guy, Applejuice 426, William Moore, and David Roberts. Thanks so much, guys. As for what's coming out next, I'm not really sure. I have a ton of videos still in the middle of production, things of varying degree of completion. I'm also slowly chipping away at Armored Core, but who knows whenever that's going to be out, because there's 15 games I have to cover, I think. So if you really want to help support me, as videos take really long to make, then the Patreon really helps out. I also have a NordVPN affiliate link in the description below using my promo code, and I also have a TCG Player affiliate link in the description below. Any purchases you make while checking out using that link will give me a small kickback. And I think that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.